to another episode of Somewhere Out There. I am Joe Hero, your host, and in this episode we're going to explore Chapter 4 of Bud Hopkins' book Missing Time, entitled The Blue Light in the Pine Barrens. The time, October 7th, 1979. Bud Hopkins received a call from Howard Rich, his good friend. Howard had been visiting his mother in Toms River, New Jersey, only the night before, and while watching TV in the evening, a bluish light seemed to fill the room. Lasting only about 3 seconds before extinguishing, it left him feeling very frightened. So he loaded a pistol and went outside around the back of the house to look around. Upon going outside and finishing his sweep of the area, he found nothing out of the ordinary, went back inside, and he claimed to Bud that there was no incident of missing time involved. The event did leave him feeling uneasy enough that he felt necessary to call Bud the very next day, though. Upon asking, no flare drops or military activity had happened near or at Fort Dix, which was in the area, and no neighbors reported anything that seemed strange or unusual either. One curious event that happened was that the personnel officer at the base, he actually somewhat interrogated Howard about his questions to him in a manner that was kind of suspect, seeming like he was trying to probe for information that he knew something about something, but he wasn't going to tell Howard about it. After Howard's first hypnotic regression session that didn't happen until some 5 months after the event, Howard remembered that there was a light on the desk near the television in the room where this happened at his mother's place, and also a single window in the room. And as the bluish light flared up, peaking in intensity, it rapidly diminished about 3 seconds after, leaving a deafening silence muffle the room. And that's a very interesting event in itself. That's noteworthy. It also left the room seeming darker than it had before the bluish light flared up. Now he recounted the rest of the event to Bud and the hypnotist, much like he had told Bud in the first place, but there was an exception, and that was that he claimed originally that he had loaded a pistol and went outside with it, but in this time around he remembers that he kept a loaded pistol in the home, and he went outside with that to go look around. He also reported persistent fear that lasted for days afterward. Now, during a second hypnotic regression session, which Howard was extremely reluctant to undergo, he recalled pain in his back and neck accompanying the blue light. And he went outside with his pistol, but he saw another light that he recalled outside, and it was coming from up in the trees. He also remembers somebody trying to push him forward, and he remembers dropping the gun. When he went back inside after the incident, he remembers cleaning the pistol because it had been wet. Another kind of unnerving incident involving this that he recalled was that before he had went right to bed then, there had been small droplets of blood on his bed sheets. And he also retrieved how he had felt odd and that he was looking for something in the days following the event. So he had drove down the back roads and went down back to Fort Dix. Upon talking about it, another abduction was recounted that happened near the base. He moaned in pain coming from his stomach this time and described being taken into a black cloud with bright lights. He reported floating sensations accompanied by black tiny people having large black eyes who were weak and having no will. Here's another trend that I want you to pay close attention to. Bud called Howard for quite a few days after his hypnosis session, and the recollection had left feelings in him recounting the experience that he told Bud made him feel that he had done something forbidden by remembering the event and particularly telling somebody about it. he wasn't able to explain why he felt that way, but he only felt odd and that actually quite scared and that he may die if he was to disclose this. Kind of curious as well. Now I'd like to ask you, can you point out any similarities between Stephen Kilburn's story that we've covered in the past in Bud's book Missing Time and Howard Rich's? There are some stark similarities here, though the events happened at different times in different places. There are distinct stages that were documented in each person's accounts. There was mind preparation first, followed by an idea or urge to do something unusual, which never comes to fruition usually because an abduction occurs along with great fear. Painful procedures ensue, and they're inflicted by beings who both men claimed seemed weak and scared. Serenity eventually takes over while the fear ebbs away, and a plateau phase is reached before the abductions are completed. Now, Bud pointed out the account of one David Oldham from 1966 during an abduction where he and two of his buddies had been driving to a nightclub and had arrived 2 hours late, not knowing why. Under hypnosis, David recounted an orange light above the trees accompanied by terrible fear. Paralysis was induced in him as well, and an examination had then begun with physical pain and an inability to breathe. There are those of you out there that I've spoken with that this is going to strike a note with. Something above his head made him vibrate, and he was returned to his car where he described to his friends as that they looked terrified, that this terrified look on their face. We know already from several accounts that we've covered already that these gentlemen have been switched off. David's account was inserted here in this book in Bud Hopkins' sequence of Missing Time stories to demonstrate a complete 3 different cases where people exhibited 3 stages of an abduction experience. The first stage is fear and paralysis. The second, being lured somewhere or to do something for an unknown reason. And the third is a state of calm or relaxation, almost of utopia, warm comfort that overcomes the victim. As we move forward, we're going to correlate these events with others and find some interesting trends that I want you out in the audience there to examine your past. Is there something that's bothering you that you think might be unexplained, something that you may need an answer to? No doubt something is happening out there. Be safe. I'm Joe Hero with another episode of Somewhere Out There.